and that is bullet straight. Guys, in today's video, I'm going to teach you how to hit it longer, and I'm also going to teach you how to hit it straighter. Let's get stuck into the lesson and look at those 5 tips so you can do that. So to hit it long and straight, we need to be doing certain things in our golf swing. If we're not doing them, it's going to be pretty difficult for us to get those long straight drives, because really there is nothing better than bombing one down the fairway in front of your friends, and you find that you're the longest one when you're out there. And the first thing we need to do, if we're going to hit it long and straight, let's look at that straight problem. The amount of times I see people on a golf course aiming in a completely wrong direction to where they actually think they are aiming is quite unbelievable. So here we're on the 18th hole at North Wales Golf Club, and what we've got is a little bit of a left to right hole, but for me it's pretty straightforward because of where the turn is in the fairway. I can actually fly it over that point. So what I need to do when I come to aim out on the golf course is actually pick an intermediate target. So as I stand here now and I look down my target line, in the distance, one of the roofs of the houses is where I want to aim. So what I would do is draw a line from up on there, and what I actually would pick is right in between these 2 old divots here is where my intended target line would be, because I could hit a really good shot but be aiming off in this direction and think it was something wrong with my swing. As where if I actually learn to align myself right by firstly getting my feet together, then pointing the club face through my intermediate target line, and then from there seeing that my feet, my knees, my hips and my shoulders are parallel to that, I then take my address position. I now know I've taken dead aim at the center of the fairway there, or my intended target line. I'm not guessing and thinking, well, I think that looks somewhere near that roof on the house that I've picked. If I've got this intermediate spot down here, it's really easy for me to get that right. So tip number 1, we need to make sure when we're out on the golf course, if we're going to hit it straight, we need to be aiming what we intend to be straight. From there then, the setup. If I want to hit it long, I'm not going to do it if I'm stood to the golf ball like this. If I don't make the most out of my frame, I'm not going to be able to generate the turn I need in my golf swing and the speed I need through the club head to actually get that ball going forwards down the fairway. So what we need to do is get a really athletic setup as we stand to the golf ball. So if we just come round here, like I say, what we don't want to see is what I would call sort of the old lazy man swing, where I'm stood here, I've not made the most of my frame, I've not given myself a good base to actually generate the power. I need to stand and do that. So what I would see, if I'm going to go and hit a long one, normally my driver stance would be, the insoles of my shoes would be just outside my shoulder width here. If I'm going to hit a real bomb, I want to just make it a little bit wider, so I've got firstly a really solid platform from there. Secondly then, I would have a little bit of tilt from my hips. I'm not just going to sit down into it like so. I want to make sure that again I'm making this good solid base and a little bit of tilt, so I can now get a really good wind up as I go through it from there. Thirdly, I want to see that I've got a little bit of tilt behind the golf ball. And what we don't want to do as well, guys, is don't over egg these too much. The amount of times I see people trying to go for a real big one and they're almost too wide and too far back, you think, well, that's just not going to work. We want to make sure we've got that athletic setup, but at the same time we want to make sure that we've not overdone it. So ball's going to be in line with that lead heel. I've got that good width of stance just outside shoulder width. I've flared my feet as well to open up my hips and allow me to turn. Then I've got that little bit of tilt there. From here then, if I make the good wind up, what we should see is I get a pretty straight shot. And that's 2 in a row that are dead straight. This month in lockdown has done me wonders with the driver as we've gone through there. Let's take a look at tips number 3, 4 and 5 to hit it a little bit longer and straighter. Guys, before we get into those tips, make sure you've hit that subscribe button down below so you don't miss any of your future golf lessons. I want you to get better at golf, and I want you to do that by joining me every week for your free golf lessons. So hit the button, turn on the bell, let's get back into the video. Okay, so tip number 3, we need to find more of the middle of the club face, because actually what we see on a driver is that the face isn't completely flat. We have what's called roll and bulge. So we have something where here the face is rolled a little bit from top to bottom, and also it's bulged from heel to the toe. And the reason for that is something to do called gear effect. If I were to hit it out of the toe, imagine 2 cogs spinning together. They would work against one another like so. And when we do this on a driver face, what it actually does is tilt the spin axis and get the ball turning back towards our target. So if I'm looking to hit straight drives, I need to make sure I'm hovering around this middle, because anything that's hit from the toe for a right-handed player would have more right to left spin on it. Anything that's hit from the heel would have more left to right spin on it. So we need to make sure that we're finding this middle of the club face to see that we are getting it straighter. So the Simple Athletes foot spray or dry shampoo is a great way to monitor where you're doing it. Even here, as we see now, those last couple that I've hit, I've got the T lines here of where I've struck it, and they were middled, hence why they went pretty straight. But one little thing I want you to do when you are set up to it, when we were just going back to point number 2, is make sure that we've got the right weight distribution from toes to heels. We want to feel that we're in the bridges of our feet. We don't want to be sat back into it too much, and we don't want to be lent into it too much, because when I do that, I'm pushing the middle of the driver forwards or pulling it away from the center of the golf ball. So tip number 3, we've got to find that middle, and we've got to understand how roll and bulge work as we go through it. Tip number 4, and this is a big one. We need to make sure that if we're going to hit it long, we're hitting up on the golf ball. If we think of a rugby player or an American football player kicking a conversion, when it's on the tee peg, they don't come down and hit down into the ground like so and stub it up into the air, because it would get up in the air but would have very limited flight. What they tend to do is come in and lift the ball up off the tee like so, and we see it soaring through the rugby posts, and that's how they score those conversions. That's the same when we're playing golf. What we need to see, and if you're someone who's got the big horrible scratches on the roof line of your driver here, it's probably because as you're going through it, you are hitting down on the golf ball too much and actually knocking the top of the driver underneath the golf ball and popping it up. We need to make sure that we're sweeping it off and just picking it up off the tee. If we can do that, we're going to see that actually that roll and bulge I talked about before comes into play here, because up on the top of the driver around about here, it would come out with less spin, it would have a little bit more loft, so we'd actually get a little bit more distance on it. So a great way for you to feel that, and this is one of the tips my dad gave in an early video, if you were to simply just line a few tee pegs up and we place them like so, what we want to try and do is make the effort, once we've got our good setup, is just to go through the swing and feel that I'm just grazing the top of them, because that's a real skill. If I can get my club to bottom out at the right point here, I can now see each time that I'm just starting to hit up on it a little bit more. If you're someone who's hitting down and breaking the tee and taking a divot like so, chances are you're not going to be getting the right part of the club face. Let's take a look at tip number 5 and find out what that one is. Okay, so tip number 5 requires a training aid, and Skills Golf actually sent me this, but I've used this a lot of times in my lessons. It's great because it's got a really whippy shaft here, and what it allows me to do, 2 things: gets really good rhythm and tempo, and also helps me understand when I want to release it, because in terms of the rhythm and tempo, it's a really heavy ball at here and a really light whippy shaft, so that helps me to get some great width and really control my golf swing. And I've got to try and keep the tempo so I'm not letting the shaft get too wobbly as I'm going through. Secondly, for most people who try to hit it long, what I would see is that they try to hit it long from the top of their golf swing. So as they get up to the top here, everything becomes aggressive in terms of the hands and the handle going at the golf ball. And as we see there, the ball ends up flicking out, and that isn't the release I want, because all my energy is used up at the top of the golf swing. What I want to try and do is get up with a nice wide backswing, make sure I've got a really good coil of my upper body against the lower body. Then I would start down with my lower body, and then as I get to round about belt height, I would feel the ball whip past my hands here. So from this point, the ball is traveling from 3 to 9 on the clock face a lot quicker than my hands are. So I get some real club head speed down at that point. So if I can learn to get this big wide arc and release it at the right time, that then allows me to get real distance as I'm going through it. Those things all coupled up should lead to a longer, straighter drive. Let's whip one away and see if we've got it. So a pretty good drive down there, long and straight, all due to those 5 factors there. So guys, if you're looking to hit longer, straighter drives, make sure you go through those checklists. It might be one thing that you're just missing off. You might not be releasing it, you might be overdoing the setup, but if you go back through there, you should see that I'll help you hit longer, straighter drives. I hope you've enjoyed this video this week. If you have, do hit that subscribe button down below for me and join me in your next lesson where you're hitting more fairways.